when I read it, I found it problematic or for whatever reason. Where do we stand as an actor in terms of approaching key creatives about stuff like that?
Well, one of my favorite things to do is to coach my actors who've gotten leads on stuff. I was working with an actress today who's the lead on, she just did back-to-back features, and so she's #1 on it, and they're like big features. When you're #1 on it, you can bring in ideas or thoughts. And on her last project, we were coaching it, breaking it down, and analyzing it. And we were reading the script, and I found one of the characters was kind of stereotypical and didn't have a certain amount of depth. And we discussed it, and she went to the director, and the director said, I'd be really open to it, and so would the writer. And then she and I worked it and broke it down and discussed it, and we actually came up with different dialogue. We actually moved a scene around, and we discussed it, and then all of our changes were instituted. And we saw the next draft, we're like, oh my gosh, we should get a writing credit, this is great. I have 4 women right now I'm working with, and they're all leads on stuff. And so when you're #1 on the call sheet, you sort of have a little bit more of that power. But if you're #1 on the call sheet in an Aaron Sorkin project, you don't. So it kind of depends on what it is, right? So the one thing is, do or do you not have the clout? But the second thing is, what is it that you're bringing up? Like, what do you have problems with? Because as soon as an actor goes, I got a problem with this writing, the first thing I question is the actor. Because I go, well, you have the problem with the writing, why? Because it makes you uncomfortable, because the material is difficult, because you don't understand it, because it's outside of your purview, because the character is not following your philosophy of life or your approach of life. Like, that's exciting. The fact that you're uncomfortable with the material should make you even more excited to do the material. And the whole idea is to bring yourself to do material that's foreign to you. Like, the idea is to find the empathy in things that, like, you don't actually eat people in real life. So you're playing Hannibal Lecter, you know? Like, we're doing Dahmer in my class right now. One of the actors is here. It's very difficult. So we discussed, like, is this material that you would do? Would you say yes to this? Is this bringing joy to the world? Is this affecting the world in a good way? What's the empathy behind it? We had to have big conversations about do you or do you not do it, right? So at first you go, that's weird that my face is next to me. Just go. Is it you take umbrage against the material because the material's rubbing up against you? And that's probably a really good thing. And then once you go, no, I'm good with all of that, there's something pejorative about the material, or there's something distasteful about the material, or I think some white straight male wrote this gay woman of colored part and doesn't really fucking understand it, and you're like, okay, you know, there's things that need to be changed. Or then I'm like, yeah, then you sit down with the writers and you go, I feel like. Then you get down to the writing, which is like, is it because is the dialogue or how it's spoken, or is it clarity, or is it the structure of the scene, or does the scene not really follow a good 3-act structure, or is there like the climax doesn't really work in the scene, or you're starting to go, okay, there's things about the scene that don't work mechanically, and we can help it. In this, I can't tell you who it is and what the project is, but this project was based on somebody's real life and their autobiography, and the original writer wrote it very like honoring all the beats of their life, and it doesn't translate as a film, so it was a very clunky feature. So I was helping them rewrite it. This is all if you're #1. If you're #10, you just say what's written on the page. Like if you're the Santa Claus at the hunky Hallmark 3, you just ho 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 and say whatever was written on the page. Like that's not your place, you know? And I teach actors how to make bad material great by working on the greats. Aaron Sorkin, Teresa Rebeck, Neil LaBute, Alan Brown, trying to think of the really great writers we're working on. By working with the really great writers, you get to understand what great writing is, and then you start to apply the great writing rules to not so great writing. But without changing dialogue, you can reformulate the scene into working. There's a lot of times where actors go, I can't memorize this. It's all written in 4s. There's like 6 acts. There's no through line to it. And we, without changing a word, we figure out how to make it work. And then they walk into the audition, or they put their self-tape on tape, and then they book it because the director's like, finally, somebody knows how to do my work, you know? And it's because it's not actually that well written. But before an actor goes, this isn't well written, I'm very conscious of the fact that my son sat on my glasses. Before you decide it's not well written, you need to know what is good writing. And a lot of actors are not educated in what good writing is. So, I mean, as a joke once, I read a scene in class and was going, oh, this is terrible. Oh my God, look at this writing. And we read the scene, people were like, oh my God, it's terrible. I was like, okay, it's Harold Pinter, and it won a Tony and a Olivier Awards. So something's wrong with your analysis. Like it's good work. It's just complicated work that you don't know how to break down.